In this video, I'm going to talk about why I think Fief from Academy Games is a great game. In Fief, players take control of a family in 15th century France. They'll be trying to accumulate either 3 victory points by themselves or 4 victory points in an alliance with another family through marriage. To get these points, players will be trying to obtain land and titles to secure fiefs and bishoprics. As the game progresses, players will likely have to fight to hold on to their assets long enough so that they can acquire the victory points needed to win the game. This will happen by battling each other militarily, but also through other nefarious means like assassination and capture of nobles. At its most basic, Fief is a war game with a bit of negotiation mixed in, but really, it's a lot more than that. The first thing that really stands out about the game is its theme. It really does feel like you're traipsing about 15th century France, worried about plagues and droughts, trying to tax the peasants without them revolting, not to mention your opponents who are trying to assassinate you or take your stronghold. It really does feel like everything's hanging on a knife's edge. The other thing about theme that really sinks in here is that everything is tied to the land. All of your titles, all of your control over the clergy really depend on how well you've expanded and held on to your land. In my experience, early in the game, players will scramble to get that first fief under their belt and get that one victory point. Once you have that title, then other people will talk to you about marriage and other negotiations. But before that, you're really nobody. And I kind of feel like that's how it would have been back then. Another thing that makes Fief a great game is the notion of a family dynasty. Throughout the course of the game, you'll be having babies, boys and girls, and they're going to try to obtain titles without getting killed or captured. You'll need them to move your armies around the board. If they survive long enough, your children will end up becoming fief lords and bishops and cardinals, and hopefully someday the Pope or the King. In my experience, it's only a matter of time before you become genuinely attached to these standees moving around the board. You'll bask in their successes, and you'll be really upset when someone tries to kill them in a battle or, worse, assassinate them, sometimes even their own spouse. And that brings me to another reason why this game is great, and that's player interaction. Once the initial land grab is complete and players have established their boundaries on the board, it becomes really difficult to not interact with the other players, if you haven't done so even before that. In our games, the negotiation starts pretty early. I won't do this if you won't do that. Also, the first player who has a female child born into the family becomes really popular with regard to marriages. At the beginning of each round, there's an opportunity to form an alliance with one other player. An alliance is formed by marrying one of your children to one of their children. Once an alliance is formed through marriage, those 2 players can only win the game together with 4 total points between them. It's 15th century France, so marriage is until death do us part. But that doesn't mean you can't kill your spouse off with an assassination, or maybe they accidentally get killed during a battle. If the alliance is broken off this way, then each player is back to having to win the game with their own 3 victory points. This leads to some very interesting experiences throughout the course of the game and really adds to the overall fun. Even if these nefarious machinations never come to light, the possibility of them occurring throughout the course of the game adds a layer of fun that is hard to match in other games. Throughout the game, players will be getting action cards that they'll be using in a take-that sort of way with the other players. For instance, if you decide to tax or tithe your citizens, which you will do because you'll need the money, another player could play a revolt card if they have it, putting your military at risk and maybe even one of your children. It's the same thing if you try to assassinate someone. You'll have to assign the assassin token to one of your own children, and if somebody has an executioner card, they can bring that child to justice at any time during the game. It's that level of player interaction that brings me to my final point, which is, at the end of the day, Fief is at least as much an experience as it is a game, or even more so. Every time I play, it seems that a story unfolds as told by the players through their actions in the game, sort of like a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons. I've seen some reviews where people say the game is fiddly or the rules are sometimes hard to follow, and I can't really argue with that. But I've found those things to be exponentially overcome by the amount of fun I've had playing this game. Ultimately, for me, Fief masterfully combines theme and mechanics to a place that makes it greater than the sum of its parts. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel for even more game content.